The battle's not yours, but God's. You don't need to fight in this battle. But, he says, set yourselves, and look at this, stand ye still, and see the salvation of the Lord. Didn't Paul say, stand, having done all the stand therefore? We wrap ourselves up in His promises and in His Word and in what He says to us and in our faith in Him, and then we just stand there. And we stand and see the salvation of the Lord. You don't need to fight. Set yourselves, stand still. See the salvation of the Lord with you, O Judah and Jerusalem. Fear not. Have we heard that before? Yes, I think we have. Fear not, nor be dismayed. Tomorrow go out against them, for the Lord will be with you. Now, he said, stand, and you don't need to fight, but you go against them. That's interesting, isn't it? And Jehoshaphat bowed his head with his face to the ground, and all Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem fell before the Lord, worshiping the Lord. And the Levites and the children of the Kohathites and the children of the Korites stood up to praise the Lord God of Israel with a loud voice on high. And they rose early in the morning, and they went forth unto the wilderness of Tekoa. And as they went forth, Jehoshaphat stood and said, Hear me, O Judah, and all you inhabitants of Jerusalem. Listen to his advice. Believe in the Lord your God. That's pretty good advice. Believe Him. Trust in Him. So shall you be established. Believe His prophets. So shall you prosper. In other words, they just heard from the word from the Lord. Verse 21. And when he had consulted with the people, He appointed singers unto the Lord, that they should praise the beauty of holiness. And they went before the army, and to say, Praise the Lord, for His mercy endures forever. What a scene that must have been. Here's the army, and they put a bunch of singers out in front. Now, frankly, I don't know if I'd want to be the singers out in front of the army, but that's where they were. And these guys are marching out to face them, saying, Praise the Lord, for His mercy endures forever. Now, when he said, you don't need to fight, the battle is not yours but God's, but then he says, set yourselves, go against them, it seems a little contradictory, but it's not contradictory. The way they go against them, and by the way, the way we go against what opposes us, we can do the same thing they did, by praising the Lord. That's the way they did it. Praise the Lord. By the way, when you're praising the Lord, it means you're looking at and focusing your attention on Him instead of the problem. And when they began to sing and praise, the Lord, verse 22, sent ambushments against the children of Ammon and Moab and Mount Seir, which were come against Judah. And they were smitten. For the children of Ammon and Moab stood against the children of the inhabitants of Mount Seir, utterly to slay and destroy them. And when they made an end of the inhabitants of Seir, everyone helped to destroy another. In other words, they all turned on each other and destroyed one another. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And let's see, verse 24. And when Judah came to the watchtower in the wilderness, they looked unto the multitude, and behold, they were dead bodies fallen to the earth, and none escaped. Now, what formerly seemed so bad and so insurmountable and so terrifying, when they stood and praised the Lord and wrapped themselves up in His might, what they finally saw was there was nothing to be afraid of at all, because it was all destroyed. And when Jehoshaphat and the people came to take away the spoil of him, they found among them in abundance both riches with the dead bodies and precious jewels, which they stripped off for themselves, more than they could carry away. And they were 3 days in gathering the spoil. It was so much. What originally looked like a terrible disaster, God turned it around where it was not only a disaster, but it was actually to their benefit and in their favor. Now, what seems like a terrible trouble and terrible disaster, if we'll stand our ground and put our faith in the Lord, He can take what seemed like a terrible disaster and make something good out of it. That's how good He is. Okay, let's all stand up today. You're all such patient listeners. I want to thank you. Jesus!